Paris, 1789. The streets were filled with noise, footsteps, whispers, anger. France stood on the edge of collapse. For generations, the nobles and the clergy had lived in comfort, while the rest of the nation struggled to survive. The fields were barren, the harvests had failed, and bread, the food of the poor, had become so expensive that families starved. The king dined in gold, while his people begged in the streets. The spark that would ignite the modern world was about to be lit. Beneath the glittering chandeliers of Versailles, King Louis XVI still believed in the divine right of kings. But outside those palace walls, the people no longer believed in the divine. They believed in justice. They believed in change. Philosophers like Voltaire, Rousseau, and Montesquieu had planted a dangerous idea in the minds of men, that power should not be inherited, but earned. That all men were born free and equal. These ideas, once whispered in salons and coffee houses, now echoed through every street of Paris. When the king called the Estates General in May 1789 to solve the kingdom's financial crisis, he unknowingly opened the door to revolution. The assembly was divided into three estates: the clergy, the nobility, and the common people. But representation was unequal. Two privileged estates outvoted the third, though the third estate represented 98% of the population. The injustice was unbearable. And so, the commoners broke away. They declared themselves the National Assembly, the true voice of France. When the king tried to lock them out, they met in a nearby tennis court and swore an oath never to disband until France had a constitution. That moment, the tennis court oath, marked the birth of a new France. Days later, on July 14th, the anger of the people exploded. A crowd of Parisians stormed the Bastille, a medieval fortress that symbolized royal oppression. Cannon fire thundered through the city, smoke rose above the rooftops, and when the gates finally fell, the revolution had begun. The fall of the Bastille became more than a victory. It became a declaration that the people, not the king, held the future of France. The months that followed reshaped society itself. The National Assembly abolished feudal privileges, erased centuries of aristocratic rights, and declared that men are born and remain free and equal in rights. It was a promise to all humanity: freedom of speech, equality before the law, and the right to property. For the first time in history, the concept of human rights was written not in philosophy, but in law. The church lost its grip on power, the nobility lost its privileges, and France began to reinvent itself. But revolution is never peaceful. What began as a cry for liberty soon turned into a storm of fear. The royal family attempted to flee the country, and when they were captured, trust in the monarchy was shattered. In 1792, France declared itself a republic, and the age of kings came to an end. The guillotine became the new symbol of justice. Crowds filled the squares as King Louis XVI was executed, followed by Queen Marie Antoinette. The age of divine rule had fallen to the blade of equality. Yet freedom came with blood. The revolution, consumed by its own ideals, entered its darkest chapter, the Reign of Terror. Led by Maximilien Robespierre, the Committee of Public Safety ruled with fear. Thousands were accused of treason and executed, often without trial. Former revolutionaries turned on one another. The guillotine, once meant to serve justice, now served vengeance. The revolution devoured its own children, until Robespierre himself met the same fate, condemned by the very revolution he had created. Still, even through chaos, something extraordinary endured. The revolution had unleashed an idea too powerful to be killed. Across Europe, peasants, workers, and thinkers watched as France tore down the old order. Monarchs trembled as revolutionary armies marched beyond France's borders, spreading the message of liberty and equality. The revolution was no longer just French, it was human. In its later years, the revolution transformed again. From the ashes of the Republic rose a young general named Napoleon Bonaparte, a man who promised stability after years of chaos. He crowned himself emperor, but even as he built a new empire, he carried the legacy of the revolution with him: merit over birth, law over privilege, and the belief that the state should serve the people, not the other way around. By the time the dust settled, France had changed forever, and so had the world. The Revolution had destroyed feudalism, weakened monarchies, and inspired movements from Latin America to Eastern Europe. It gave birth to the modern idea of the citizen, a person with rights, voice, and value. The French Revolution was not just a political event. It was a transformation of the human spirit. It was the moment when people looked at kings and said, "No more." It was the moment when equality was not just a dream, but a demand. And though it brought terror and war, it also brought the foundation of what we now call freedom. Its legacy lives in every democracy, every protest, every call for justice. The tricolor flag, once raised by rebels, now waves over a nation that changed the meaning of power forever. What began as a cry for bread became a cry for humanity. And even today, the words born in 1789 still echo across the world: liberté, égalité, fraternité.